Hey everybody, welcome back to Patty's channel. It's been a while. I've been busy with a new business, so I haven't had time to play with my toys. And since that time, my wife has bought a 1997 Eurovan Winnebago. So she wants to go camping. I want to go camping too. So there she is. Really good condition inside and out. The only issue that we have for the moment is a propane reservoir valve that's leaking when you open it, so that's on order. And the timing chains. Timing chains are very noisy, and we've decided that we wanted to go for Christmas, well, not for Christmas, just after Christmas, to South Carolina. And so from Montreal to South Carolina, it's 1,800 kilometers. So we'll probably be doing about 4,000 plus kilometers in 9 days. So I want to get those timing chains done. And parts are on order. Ordered them today. So the challenge is it's middle of December or early December. I have to work on this in the garage. So in the garage at the moment is the Beetle, because the Beetle hasn't been worked on at all since since I restored the garage or renovated the garage. But before I get the Beetle out, so there's the chassis and the body. The body, I'm going to put it under that car shelter. The chassis, rolling chassis, is going to go under this car shelter. But at the moment in this car shelter, there's the GTI. And there are 9 wheels and tires. So that's our challenge for tonight and tomorrow. Get everything in place. Hopefully start dismantling. So I've never done a timing chain before. I've done belts a couple of times. Changed transmissions. And I checked the timing chains on the VR6 are pretty straightforward. Don't need any really specialty tools. So should be good, and hopefully it'll be ready for the 26th of December when we leave. So fingers crossed. Stay tuned. So here we are in the garage. This is the next day, so we're Saturday. That took me about 4 hours, I guess, to get all the cars moved, the garage emptied out, and brought the van in. So got quite a bit of space on both sides. So I got room to work. So that's pretty good. And in the front here too, I got some room. So I forgot to put the heat up, so it's still a bit cold in here this morning. So let's get this thing jacked and see how we're gonna get this transmission out and get all these chains replaced. So let's take a look at what we're getting into. This little VR6. So the beast is under there. So we got quite a few things to take off. Yeah, looks like I'm gonna have to empty out the cooling system. Intake. Yeah, lots of stuff. Let's get to it. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove the front grille. So to have access, work on the intake and other parts. There's not a lot of room there. So this whole front part swings open or swings forward. So we got screws here. We've got screws down here for the grille. For the bottom part of the grille, you have screws over here. And you also have a screw that's hidden behind the amber light. So you got to take the amber light by pulling on a little metal clip. It's in the back. Let me show you. So this is the retaining clip. The retaining clip. You have access just behind the grill here. And then take your bulbs out. Same thing on the other side. So to pull this part off, you got to pull it forwards once the screws are undone. But you got to be careful right here. There's a little pin that sticks up. So you got to kind of lift it up to pass the pin, and then you can pull it out. Let's go do the other side. So lift up, and it's out. There we go. Okay, so top bolts are off on both sides. I like to put bolts back in their place so that I don't lose them, and I know exactly where they go. Same thing for that little one there on the side. And the front, this cover can come off. And we're left with the radiator. So as I mentioned, this could lean forward to gain access to the back. So I don't think I'm going to take all this off because you got the air conditioning. You've got the power steering. I think that's power steering coolant. I think this is a radiator for the transmission that was added from the last owner. So there's a lot of stuff here. I don't want to start taking all that apart. So I'm just going to drain the coolant and drain the oil. So I'm going to lift the car up, and then we'll get going. So before I lift the vehicle, I want to slack the bolts for the front wheels, and I also want to slack the bolt that holds the drive shafts in place. So this one is a 27 mil. I already slacked it, and the lug bolts are slacked as well. Because once those wheels are in the air, it's going to be a lot harder to get those undone. So the car is on its jack stands. I don't have it to the maximum height because I'm just going to empty the fluids at the moment. So I got to take the big pan off. Protective plate is huge in the front. It's held in by a couple of bolts on the sides, and in the front it's a clip. So I'll show you that once I get to it. So there's the clip I was talking about. So right now the 4 bolts, so two on each side, are undone, and the only thing that's holding it in place is this little hook, and in the back it's just there are hooks as well. So we'll see it better when I take it off. And it's nice and shiny because I had it. We had the van oil treated before the winter because it hadn't been done for a long time. We want to keep this thing rolling and rust free as much as possible. So I'm gonna push it up, put the hook in, and everything should come right down. There we go. So I have the hooks to undo at the end, and then we'll be able to take everything off. So the oil's dripping. I'm going to take the pan off as well because I want to redo the oil gasket. The oil pan gasket, it's leaking. There's a little leak as well on the cartridge for the oil filter. So probably it looks like it's just the seal. That's at the little oil cooler as well. It's dripping. Automatic transmission was rebuilt before we bought it from the previous owner. It was about a $5,000 repair, and then they added another $1,000 to put, or at least, or maybe not $1,000, but several $100s to add that transmission oil cooler. For the rest, looks pretty nice. So we're a couple of hours in the dismantling part. So I've got the air filter box out. The Poland filter, sorry, for the ventilation. Got the air filter box out because that was linked. I had to take that out to get the throttle body intake, or the intake, out. So I took a bunch of pictures because there's some vacuum hoses that were plugged in on the side of it. There's some coolant lines that were passing through part of the intake to heat up the air. That's what I think it is, anyways. And those tubes are going into the intake itself and then going back out to one of the main lines of the cooling system back there. I've got the battery out. That was the first thing I did. So make sure you do that so you don't have any problems or do some short wiring. The oil filler tube is out because that's made out of plastic and it looked kind of fragile, so I wanted to get that out of the way, and I covered it up to make sure that no junk goes into the top end of the motor. The coolant reservoir is still attached to the bottom because there's still fluid coming out. So there's the liquid that came out for the moment. So I got the bolts out that hold the intake. There are 6 of them. 3 of them had worn Allen heads like that. And I had to use vice grips to get them out, but it worked. One is still stuck in there, this one here, but it's I don't think it's in the head anymore, or in the in the head. So it should come out. It's knocking against one of the connectors here. Hopefully I don't have to take it off. And in back here, there's another bolt right here. This one there. So I didn't see it initially, but that one is holding the intake from the back side. So I'm going to take that out and let's see if I can remove the intake. All of these top ones, I managed to take them off from inside the engine compartment bay from the top. But there were 4 other bolts at the bottom. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. These 2 were relatively easy. This one I had to take off I forget what it's called. It's a fan that shoots air in the catalytic converter when you start the engine when it's cold. And unfortunately, on a previous repair, somebody removed the connector and just wired it directly. So I had to cut the wires. I'll have to put a connector on that. So that was for the middle one. I had to remove it. For this one, I had to remove a part that was right here. I don't exactly know what it is, but this is what it looks like. So and the bolts, the bolts were stripped, so I couldn't remove them. I had to use vice grips. So I got to get 2 new bolts for that. And the last bolt, this one here, so that's on the belt side. I had to remove the alternator because I couldn't get access to it without removing it. So I'm going to remove that and see if we can take the head off, the intake off. Worked. The intake is off. I have access now to the valve cover, and I'll be unbolting that very soon. I'll be taking the coil pack out as well with the wires that I left attached. And here's our intake. So I left the throttle body on it to avoid having to change the gasket. And everything looks pretty nice. The injectors are in there. Injectors look pretty clean. I don't know if I can zoom on it. So here's the result of almost a whole day of work on the van. So valve cover's off. I can finally see the timing chain, and it doesn't look, there's no sludge or anything, so that's good. Everything looks nice, but no, it's pretty clean. Got to keep in mind that the vehicle has 252,000 kilometers. So that's what, 120,000 is 200,000. So 150,000 miles. So end of day one, valve cover is off, looking pretty nice inside. Side cover is off as well. So I got to take a look at the timing chain, and we do see where, I don't know if it'll zoom there, right there. So nice groove right there, and there are grooves here as well. You can see it. See the grooves there. So didn't do all this for nothing. So tomorrow it'll be time to take the transmission out and remove the lower cover. If I can do that tomorrow, I'll be happy. So see y'all soon. All the wiring off of the transmission. The starter is out. I started tie wrapping a bunch of wires all together to get them out of the area where the transmission mates to the motor, because they were flopping around and it was a bit of a pain. So I got attachments here, got attachments down here, just to clear up the area. Got the wheels off. I've got the lower transmission mount, so that it is there. That one's off. So I thought I'd show you my setup to take off the axle bolts on the transmission. So you see it there at the end. So that's it's an M12 bit. So it's 12 pans. I forget what that is in English. So I have my wrench with an extension, a long extension, 13 millimeter in my end, and I've got a bar to block the drive shaft from it spinning. So that's how I get to it. Like that. So the drive shaft is finally out. There it is. And I can't believe everything that I had to take apart to get it out. It's crazy. I started by the bottom ball joint. When I pulled it forward, not enough clearance to get the drive shaft out. And then I started taking off the top one. And of course the torsion bar is attached to this guy, so it's impossible to lift it up. And this guy has a lot of pressure on it as well, so it keeps on coming up. I couldn't get it to stay down while I was trying to work on it. And eventually when I got this one out, I had to take the caliper off because the cable wasn't long enough to push it down so that I can clear the top ball joint. And then once all that was apart and I can pull it forward, I couldn't get it past that hole. So there's the top suspension arm, there's the transmission, there's the lower suspension arm support and pivot, and then there's this. So I had to jack up the transmission a little bit. I had to use a pry bar to pull it forward. I had to raise the shock absorber higher up to be able to maneuver it. A real mess. I think I've spent more than an hour just on that. I've got a jack on the engine. I've got a jack on the transmission. So as soon as I undid the bolts, the casings came apart slightly. So, and it's been accentuating a lot more without me even pulling on it, because I'm lowering the trans and I'm lowering the engine at the same time. I believe we need to have a good angle to pull it out. I've got automatic transmission fluid dripping, so kind of surprised about that. I think maybe it's the torque converter or something, I don't know. So what's going to be a problem is here. So that's the subframe, front subframe. Transmission is right there. You can see it's touching. So because I have to pull it towards me a little more, and I don't think there's much room, so I might have to pull the engine a bit forward to give it a bit of room. We'll see how that works. So here we are, end of day 2. I'm a little disappointed. I thought I'd have the transmission out by now, but it's not out yet. It's blocking against the subframe. And I looked in the manual. Maybe I should have done that before doing the job. But you got to take quite a few other parts off. So the downpipe has to be taken off. The intermediate shaft has to be unbolted from the right drive shaft. And so that's what I did. Those are the last things that I did. And right now, I'm going to stop because I'm tired. And so the engine has to be moved forward, and it has to be lowered. That's the only way you can get the transmission out from underneath. And that's going to be fun. On the Volkswagen manual, they have special tools or jigs that they attach to the vehicle to be able to do that manipulation. And of course, I just have 2 jack stands, or 2 jacks. Sorry. So tomorrow's another day. So here we are again in the garage, trying to get this darn transmission out. It's really complicated. So I got a engine jack because I don't think I could have done it any other way. The engine and transmission are still assembled to be able to lower everything at the proper angle, proper height. So if you look at the engine support on the passenger side, this is how far off I am from it. So these 2 guys should be going in there. So that's how lower it is there. How it's been pushed back on the passenger side. Okay. Which means the transmission is all the way at the front. So there was lots of space there. And if you look at it at the bottom, this is how the transmission is at the moment. So it's clearing the subframe on the right there. On the left, I still have lots of room. I've got my jack stand underneath, ready to lower it. and everything's unplugged at the top. So basically right now the engine and the transmission are holding on by the jack and the engine hoist. So had I known that everything had to be taken off in the first place, I think I would have taken the whole front off of the van and taken everything with the hoist from the front. It would have saved me a lot of trouble. So anyways, let's see if this works now. The transmission is out. Look. Just took me 2.5 days. Take a look at underneath. Came out really easily with that angle. Even too easily, because it was coming out when I didn't want it to. So I had to scramble the jack underneath a bit, position it a bit differently. But trans is out. I can start working on the chains. Well, a couple of parts to take off. But can start working on the change, so I'm relieved. I'm just not looking forward to putting that transmission back in, because it's really heavy. And I don't have those transmission jacks that attach to it, so kind of slips and slides on my normal jack. Anyways, that's not today, so let's get to those chains. Finally got to the chains. So I haven't taken anything apart yet. I'm gonna double check how everything is timed at the moment. Make sure that I put everything back the same way. Or at least the correct way, if it's not the same, the correct way now. Oh well, you know what I mean. So here are all the guides. So none of them are cracked, but you have some nice nice grooves on this guy. I don't know if you can see them properly. This one a little less, but still pretty decent. So those are the upper ones, and the lower ones have grooves as well. So they probably could have lasted a lot longer. But we're going to be doing long distances with my kids, my wife. We're going to be going to the States, rest of Canada, so I don't want that in the back of my mind, knowing that I might let go at some point. Gotta remember, this vehicle has 255,000 kilometers. All right, everything's in place. So this isn't a video that explains how to time your chains. So the best video that there is out there is from the Humble Mechanic. If you type in VR6 timing chains, you'll find his videos. He has 2, and very informative. The only 2 things that I would suggest, the first one is to block the opening at the bottom here, because when you install your bolts, if ever they fall, they might fall in your oil pan. So that can be problematic for some of you. The other thing is, in the Humble Mechanics video, he mentions that the split here, the marking on the sprocket, has to face up. So because this engine is inclined, it doesn't face up. It faces. It faces up. It has to be perpendicular to the engine block casing here. So up, in my case, is at that angle, and not up like that. So keep that in mind when you're doing yours, because this one is in the vehicle. And I used tie wraps to give tension over here to be able to turn the engine by hand and not have the chains skip a notch or lose tension or whatnot in the top. So tie wrap to hold this tensioner in place because our covers are not on. So my markings are good down here. Markings are good there, and the cams are in place and marked as well. So theoretically, we're good. So everything's torqued down. I have to remove this for the tensioner, and I have to remove that before putting the covers back on. So there are our time and chain covers. As you can see, the lower one, I took the seal out, and I had to make it a little more fragile on the side with the cutting disc on a Dremel tool. So of course I was very careful not to cut into the cover. I tried hitting it to get it out. I don't know if you can see there properly or not. I guess not. But the cover wasn't budging at all. It was really jammed in there pretty good. Crankshaft bolts are torqued. It's 44 foot-pounds torque initial torquing, or torque. And then you have to add an extra quarter of a turn, which is 90 degrees. And I'm a little tired because it was pretty hard to do. Keep in mind I used a very long torque wrench to do that extra 90 degree. And it was very difficult to do it in place here. And what I did is, as soon as I torqued it at 44 the first time, I would put a mark. So to make sure that I torqued all of them. And then each time I torqued it, I added the extra quarter turn. I put a second mark to make sure, again, that all bolts have those 2 marks on it, which means that I torqued all of them correctly. So no more engine hoist. The transmission is in. We did that last night with my son. So it was a bit of a chore, to be honest. And mostly because the transmission and the engine are inclined in the Eurovan. They're not straight like in a normal vehicle that has the VR6. So let me show you how I did that. To balance the transmission on the jack, I put a wooden board here, and to have it at the right angle, I added this part here. So it's sat down properly, because on this side you had the differential part, and on this side you had the like the oil pan of the transmission, and that kept it stabilized, and it also kept it at the right angle. So that's how I got that in. Without that, I wasn't able to. I tried I don't know how many times. So there's that little transmission back in. Engine supports are in. So I'm starting to reassemble everything. I did put in the left side drive shaft, so the driver's side, before attaching the transmission, because it's a lot easier to do that. I just put in 1 bolt to keep it in there. So that was key. I'm at a point where I'm putting the downpipe back in. So these are the original gaskets for the top part, so between the exhaust manifold and the downpipe. So there are 2, one on the left, one on the right. These are not available at the dealership, so I went to a local muffler shop with the old ones. They found me similar ones. So the center is practically the same diameter. The only issue is regarding the holes. So there's a little bit of a gap. They're not quite aligned. So I got my Dremel out, and I made these holes a bit more oval to be able to center it. I mean, it's hard to place it just with one hand, but you see we're pretty good there. I should be able to install that with the ovalized holes compared to the original ones. So time to put the valve cover back on. I'm cheating a little bit. Normally, you're supposed to replace the valve cover because the valve cover gasket comes with the valve cover, but I put on some sealant. I don't know if you can see it there. I put on just a little tiny bead of sealant. It's Permatex Ultra Black for a gasket maker. So just to give it a little extra something. Valve cover is on. So I'm just gonna torque it down in a couple of minutes because apparently you gotta wait an hour once you apply the sealant. You just finger tight or just tighten a little tiny bit for it to ooze out a bit. Wait an hour and then do your final torque sequence. So in the meantime, I was getting the intake ready. There it is. So I just cleaned up all the surfaces where the gasket's going to go. Whoever did the last repair on it kept the old gasket and put sealant. So there's the rest of sealant. So I cleaned up everything that was on the surface, and I was able to get a new gasket. So better that than put sealant on. And the injectors, everything looks really clean. You can zoom in. There you go. They're all super clean. So they look like they've been played with at one point. There's tape around the connectors and the wiring, and they've been marked as well. So I don't know when they were changed. I don't have any info on that. I decided to take the oil pan off because I had a small leak coming from the lower part here, and I decided to do it before I finished installing everything because the drive shaft here had difficulty accessing certain bolts, so I was glad this was not attached yet. And ideally I should have done it before putting the transmission back in, at least undoing the bolts. Some of them were hard to get at with this in place, with the transmission, the output shaft, and that was a bit in the way. But anyways, all in all, it took a long time. There were several bolts that were just so rusted inside that the Allen key didn't properly fit. And I had to take off 3 with the vice grips and 1 at the top here. I'm lucky that it was at the corner. I cut it off with the small Dremel blade or disc. So it's all cleaned up, ready to get back in, put back in. Today is Sunday, the 22nd of December. So only 4 days until we leave. Last night I got quite a bit of things back in. The oil pan is back on. The drive shafts are attached to the differential. The alternator's back in. Starter's back in. Everything is moving along smoothly. So a couple more things to do, and hopefully today we'll be able to start it up and see if I did everything correctly or not. Let's cross our fingers. This is my mess. So I haven't been really cleaning up my tools, but I think I'm going to clean up a bit before starting today because I can't find things anymore, and it's just too much of a disaster. So they're still not perfect, but a lot better. Finishing the last touches of reassembly. So drive shaft's back in, suspension is reassembled, steering as well, everything is tight. So on a standard McPherson suspension, You can just take the lower ball joint bolt off down here, and then pull the disc and hub assembly out enough to get the drive shaft out or in. Not possible on this model because we have a torsion bar on the top suspension arm, and you really have to loosen the torsion bar to be able to pry it enough to get some play. And there is that torsion bar adjustment. It's underneath the vehicle, about not quite in the middle of the van. So the other one is on the other side there. So you got to measure the distance between the end and the top of the bolt before you undo it, and then put it back at the same height. So I unscrewed it probably up till here approximately to really relieve the tension on the torsion bar, to be able to move the suspension arms and put the suspension back in place. So the oil's in, the coolant is in, and I'm going to put the battery in and we'll try and start it. Everything is plugged in. Everything is, all the fluids are up to the levels for the moment. The coolant is going to go down for sure because there's some air bubbles in the system, but they'll go away once the engine is running and the water pump is turning. So just have to plug in the negative connector. I have no loose parts left, so that's reassuring. No bolts left. Everything's back on. So let's see what it gives. I've got my fire extinguisher ready as well. So negative. It's alive. No fires yet. Garage doors open. Ready to start up. Let's see. All right. No leaks for the moment. Oh, there is something leaking over there. It's a lot further away from the motor. That. It's from the fuel filter. Fuel filter is leaking. Well, it runs. Whew. I was a little stressed there for a while. Okay, let's take care of that fuel filter business. Leak at the fuel filter was because of this collar. It wasn't putting enough tension on the hose anymore. So I replaced it by a collar that you can tighten. So that's done. Can't hear the chains either. That's good news. I don't hear any hissing sounds from a vacuum leak. So we're going to let it heat up. We've got some smoke coming from the
exhaust manifold. So I'm not too worried about that because I manipulated it with greasy gloves, so it's probably just the grease that's burning off. Keep an eye on it. How about the temperature? Well, it hasn't lifted yet. Kind of strange. Let's put a level. Oh, there goes the fan. So I think we got a problem with our temperature gauge because it hasn't lifted up and the fans are on. I'm going to turn this off. I found what the issue was. On the thermostat housing, you have 3 connectors. 1, 2, and 3. And the one on the left and the one farthest to the right have the same, it's the same connectors. You can plug one into the other and the other into the other. So I switched them around, these two, and I turned the vehicle, I put the ignition switch to on, and I got a reading for the coolant temperature on the dash. So that's good. I did see some small oil drops on the ground though. They were coming from the oil filter casing. So I gave it a little extra tight. I tightened it up a little bit. So we'll see how that is moving forward. So let's start this thing up again and see where we're at. We've got our temperature reading now for the coolant on the left. Still no lights on, so oil pressure is good, battery is good, charging system, everything's good for that. All right, end of day, still the 22nd. So everything is back together, even the nose, bumper, everything, engine cover. So tomorrow, it's on the ground too, by the way. Everything is torqued, axle nuts, wheel nuts, everything. So still have that issue with the heat inside the vehicle. So the radiator for the heating is either it has air in it or it's blocked. And I'm hoping for the first situation because it seems to me that the heating worked before we took everything apart. So hopefully it's just that air that's there. So we've got to run the vehicle, drive it around, and we'll check the level of the antifreeze in the bowl right. It's hard to do it right there. And tomorrow test drive, see how things go. Well, I've been starting to take the van out of the garage, and we have drops. We have drops on the ground, and it's coming again from the fuel filter. So I didn't do a good repair on that yesterday. So here's what the issue was. The little piece here on the right is the end of the hose that was coming out of the fuel filter. And as you can see, the diameter is quite a bit bigger than a standard hose, which is on the left. So I think it's just too old. So I cut part of it off to be able to push it in further on the filter. So I had resistance pushing it in, which is a lot better than what it was before, and with the collar on again. So let's start her up and see if that fixed our problem. Well, just got back from latest test drive, and well, the first one I've done on the road, and the only thing I can say is
that the selector, the shifter, is not super precise. When you think you have it in park, it's not in park, it's in reverse. So I'll have to look into that a bit further. But it runs. The engine is smooth. Transmission shifts properly. Brakes well. I'm really happy. Now I got to put all this stuff, the Beetle parts, back in the shelter and in the garage. I've got wheels and tires to put in too, so not finished yet. And of course today it's when I started this morning it was minus 17 with the windshield factor. Now it's about minus 15, so it's not a warm day, but dress properly and you can get things done. So we'll see you in South Carolina.